So the last project of marking period 2 is going to be paper slash drawing based. So I just handed you the piece of paper, and as you can tell, the drawing is very tiny. It's only about this big. And I flipped it over for you. If you look at the back side, I have 4 little circles drawn. Those are totally optional. That's just like a sketch space if you want to jot down a few tiny little rough sketches to plan out your design, but you don't have to use the back. I'm only going to grade the front. The idea is that I gave you a drawing of a bottle cap, and we are going to create a bottle cap design for the Boylan's cane sugar sodas. So I have a link here, and the idea is this: they're very retro looking, and they come in a glass bottle. And I was looking up like what the big deal is about cane sugar versus like high fructose corn syrup, which is in like most like Coke, Pepsi, Sprite, etc. So cane sugar comes from more of a plant, and it's like ground down and then it's boiled into a different type of syrup. But they find that like high fructose corn syrup is more like genetically engineered, and it tends to have worse health benefits. So, not saying that soda is healthy in general, but this seems to be, from what I've read, cane sugar seems to be like a healthier version of a sugar. But just a fun little fact I wanted to throw in there. But the idea is, what's really cool is these are all glass bottles and they've got a little bottle cap on it. These are all sodas. There's no like liquor or anything like that. Even the ones that say birch beer and root beer, that's all soda, just to clarify. Okay. So there's lots of different flavors here, and your job is to pick any flavor of your choice, and you're going to design a bottle cap for the bottle. As you can tell, there's not a lot of room on the bottle cap, and that's definitely like a design challenge we would have in like a setting as a graphic designer. So what you need to do is make sure that you have the name of the flavor on the cap, and along with some other design. So maybe you want to add some kind of shape, some kind of line, etc. Okay. So I have some examples here at the top of students from last year who worked in that element here. So we've got just straight cream soda, black cherry, orange. So not only is a lot of their image like text, but then there's some kind of either image or shape that goes with it to add to the design. The big part that makes it a little bit trickier is that I limited your color choices. I think it says over here. So you want to use like basically the similar colors from the bottle design, but I don't want you using more than 3 colors. And I know that sounds kind of silly at first, but when a company pays for printing, the more colors there are in the ink printing, it tends to be more expensive. So again, that's a true problem in like graphic design. So our goal is that you're using no more than 3 colors, and I wasn't going to count like black or white. I'm pretty sure like white paper, or black outline. So we're trying to keep it to like 3 colors. We're hand drawing everything, and it's going to be worth 40 points. So we want to make sure that it relates to the soda we're choosing and how well it's going to embody the retro theme, which is pretty cool. Do we have any questions so far? Okay. What I want to start off with, just to kind of like warm our brains up for a moment, is just something on Padlet here. So I have a little Padlet here. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just look up a picture of a retro bottle cap. Like just go to Google and look one up that you like. Please try and make sure that it's like a soda, preferably, not anything alcohol related. And then I have a few questions I was going to ask you. So if you could list in the description how many colors you see, what shapes do they use, and how do you describe the font? That's it. So I thought that opened up the conversation a little bit just to keep it light. So I thought I'd give you maybe like 5-ish minutes to work on that, and then we'll kind of gather together. Do you have any questions so far? Cool. Right. Super. All right. Nicely done. So these are pretty good options here that we're going to talk about. So as you can tell, I asked for folks to post some information about retro bottle caps. So based on what I'm seeing here, I think all of your choices are really good. But I think the big question is this, like what makes all of these bottle caps look really retro? Yes, he is. Sure. So let's try that again. Based on what we posted here, everything looks like it's retro, but like what about these bottle caps gives them the appearance of being retro?
They look old.
They look old. So let's even ask another question with that. Like when we say something's retro, what do we mean by it?
The font is a little faded out and the color's not exactly.
Okay, good. So you've got like an older effect. Like it looks, age-wise, it looks a lot older, which is something we want to appear. Good. So usually a lot of them are kind of beat up. Okay. What else about the design gives it this kind of older, dated look?
It's shape.
The shape? The shape of what?
The like on the one that I picked, it's like a little more
Ginger ale.
spherical, which is how they used to be back. It's just like a different.
Okay, so yours doesn't have for the ginger ale one. You don't have the little the rough edge around it. Okay, that's a good point.
I think there is, but it's like under.
It's tucked under more in it. Yeah, it looks a lot smaller based on what kind of background it's on. Okay, that's a good point. Okay, so if you had to define retro for someone who's like not familiar with it, what would you say something retro is?
Older.
Definitely older. And by looking at it, you're telling me that we're definitely getting an aged effect. So besides the fact a lot of these like caps are beat up or like scratched up, what about like the colors, the design, the text is giving you a retro feel? Go ahead, Sophia.
It's like matching with the not time period, but like just the current time of what it was.
Okay, so you're feeling like some of the designs match more of the time period. So you feel like these don't match today's time period.
Yeah, like the style.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's a good point. So let's talk about one of the bottle caps on here that you feel like really shows it's retro. Who wants to talk about one?
Oh, Pepsi one.
This Pepsi one? Okay. Why do we feel like this one is trying to make it bigger? Why do we feel like this one is very retro, this Pepsi one?
Because they used to use more elegant fonts.
That's a really good point. Something that tends to be more elegant or more cursive. Good.
And it's an old logo.
Yeah. Yep, so we definitely have an old logo here. So sometimes when it's a little bit more like decorative fancy, that gives more of a retro element. So what about this font? Besides it being a little, what specifically about the letters makes it feel retro? What's really
different? I could say was the elegance of it.
Yeah, definitely
different.
The P and the C being so big and like loopy and curly with these like long lines, that's giving us more of the retro feel. Good. And I know when I told you for this project, like you have to stick with only 3 colors. It's actually, they're all pretty limited in color scheme, which is pretty interesting. Really, maybe this one has the most, the root beer, but otherwise they're all pretty limited when you think about it, which is cool. Now, I asked you, or I will ask you in your drawn design to have some kind of like shape, image, some kind of design to go with it besides the text. So, what were some nice shapes or images that you think worked really well on these caps?
My one I don't understand.
On yours, the ginger ale?
The whole universal logo, and it's like a little weird to have on a soda bottle.
Yeah. And it's also like a really tiny kind of detailed logo on that one.
Yeah, it looks like the United Nations.
Well, I think they're trying to show Canada. I think it's like super North America up here, but It's hard to see. Like this cap is minuscule. It's probably like that logo is probably the size of a fingernail. So yeah, I'm happy we could bring that up. That's kind of challenging to view. Okay. How about this one? What's successful about these shapes? What shapes do you see? You got a lot of shapes. Yeah, you've got this kind of, you got this green circle in the background, and then I guess you could say maybe you want to call this like a rainbow shape. And then this multi-sided shape, maybe some kind of polygon, hexagon situation here.
Okay.
Yeah, hex is 6. Yeah, that's 6. It's just not equal on all the sides, which is fine. So even like a basic repetition of circles, most of them have circles on them.
It gives an atomic vibe.
It does give like an atomic vibe. So a lot of them have just simple circles on the background, simple outlines. So we don't actually have to get too complex, which is nice. This one worked out nicely too. Can you still pretty much tell that this is some kind of like polar bear situation, even though you only have blue and white?
Yeah,
Okay. Why do you think it's easy to tell it's a polar bear?
just the detail on the bear.
Yeah, you've got this kind of shading, like, and dark shading on like a white shaped polar bear, which works out pretty well. Good. All right. Lastly, let's talk about font choices a little bit more besides just the script. Let's talk about more like block fonts, like traditional handwriting type of fonts. How about this one, this orangey one that Sophia picked? For this root beer one, why do you feel like this font may be a little bit retro?
Just aging of it.
Okay,
And
like,
also the font again.
yeah, so what about the shape of the font? Maybe you want to look
Just
at like
they
the
had
B.
on store signs and stuff in the 50s.
Okay.
They don't really have that anymore.
Okay. It's kind of like unequal in its thickness. It's not perfectly perfect. And I think we're used to like things being perfectly copied and pasted and things of that nature. Usually these retro fonts have a little bit more uniqueness to them. They tend to be a little bit more unequal. So something like that could work out really nicely. So these were really good examples, and hopefully they give you some ideas for your design, which works out great. I don't think anyone picked anything. Oh, you could see that the current Boylan bottle caps are up here, and they're kind of on the boring side. So that's why I think you could up your game a little bit. Like they already have this design on the bottles, so it's like, let's go for something fancy on the lid, which will be nice. So a fun tip I want to give you, which will be quite helpful. Oh, I posted the link, but I'll post it again. So it's called dafont.com. And this is a great resource for different fonts. Now, okay, it's not letting me post it, but I'll leave it right down here. So dafont.com is a nice option to get ideas for fonts. You and I don't have download capabilities to upload whatever fonts we want, but Dafont's like a free resource to use fonts, usually for non-for-profit, or you could buy them if you were like using them as a professional graphic designer. So we're not for profit because we're a school and we're not like selling our designs, but they have all these great like categories here you could go under. So you could look up sans serif fonts if you just want ones that are just thick and bold, or serif if you want them to have those little tails on them, but some of those may be a little too thin for your liking. If you go under fancy on the left-hand side, they have one that's actually called retro, which is fantastic. And here's some of those elements we talked about, these kind of imperfect letters with varying thicknesses, and they had a lot of loops and things of that nature. And there's like 20 pages of fonts here that you're welcome to use. So the idea is this. I don't want you tracing them off the screen because we could like stab the screen by accident. We don't want to do that. I can like help guide you, draw them as best as you can. If I really don't want you to trace them, but in most cases, since there's not much we could fit on there, it should work out. So that's a good idea to help getting like the ideas going. So do we have any questions so far about the project? All right. We still have about like 20, 25 minutes left. So my plan for today is this. I would flip to the back side of your bottle cap and I would just casually sketch a few rough ideas for your soda. I don't care if all 4 sketches are for the same type of Boylan soda or if they're 4 different ones. I don't have a preference. It's totally your call. If you feel like you're ready to like commit to your final copy bottle cap on the front, you're welcome to do that. If not, just keep sketching today. But we're going to work on this through Tuesday. So I believe that's like about 4 class periods, I want to say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's like 4 or 5. Any questions so far? All right, cool. Let's get going.